Why passivity breeds mediocrity and mental illness. How apathy destroys the mind. What if the very comfort we've worked so hard to build is the same thing quietly stealing our sense of purpose? In this video, we explore the hidden emotional cost of modern civilization, the restlessness behind our routines, the numbness beneath our comforts, and the quiet hunger for something real. You'll be invited to pause and reflect, not to escape the world, but to return to yourself. This is not just philosophy. It's a mirror held gently, asking you to look beyond achievement and ask what truly makes life worth living. Whether you felt empty in the middle of success or silently wondered if there's more to your story, stay with us, because sometimes the most important questions are the ones we've forgotten how to ask. When civilization leaves us empty, modern civilization has given us more comfort, safety, and convenience than at any point in human history. But beneath the polished surface of progress, something essential has quietly faded. In the pursuit of stability, have we lost touch with what makes life truly meaningful? We build systems to protect ourselves from chaos, but in doing so, we also shield ourselves from challenge, from growth, from the sharp edges of experience that once shaped our ancestors. We are safe, but we are restless. We are connected yet deeply alone. We have endless distractions, but few real reasons to wake up each morning with fire in our chest. Many people today live in a quiet kind of despair, not from trauma, not from tragedy, but from a slow erosion of meaning. It is not pain that consumes them, but a dull numbness that makes life feel weightless. Days blur into weeks, and months pass without a single memory that stirs the soul. In this silence, people begin to wonder, is this all there is? The truth is, emptiness does not arrive all at once. It builds gradually in the absence of inner purpose, in the lack of deep reflection, in the refusal to ask difficult questions. What am I here for? What truly matters to me? What is the cost of comfort if it means forgetting who I am? Perhaps the real danger of civilization is not the chaos it avoids, but the quiet conformity it encourages. When we trade the wildness of life for routine, we may also give up something irreplaceable, our sense of aliveness. To feel alive is to be moved, to be challenged, to be changed. This is not a call to reject society, but a gentle invitation to return to ourselves, to begin again, to listen closely to the silence we have been trying to drown out. In that silence, we may find not emptiness, but a voice we have long forgotten our own. From hard labor to free time, what have we traded? For most of human history, free time was a rare and precious thing. Life was a daily struggle for survival. From sunrise to sunset, people worked. The land tended to animals, hunted, cooked, carried water, cared for children. Time was not owned, it was endured. Leisure in the modern sense simply did not exist for the vast majority. It was not until the Industrial Revolutions that this began to change. Machines replaced muscle, factories centralized labor, urban centers expanded. Work became organized into hour shifts, schedules. For the first time, large numbers of people found themselves with blocks of time outside of their essential duties. Time that was not for survival, but for self-direction. This, many believe, was a victory, a sign of progress. But with this newfound freedom came a deeper dilemma. Once survival is secured, what do we do with ourselves? When every need is met, what remains to nourish the soul? As leisure grew, so did the industries of distraction, entertainment, consumerism, mass media. We filled the space with noise, spectacle, and convenience. But in doing so, we may have forgotten the original promise of free time, not to escape life, but to engage more deeply with it. Time once precious is now spent casually, even carelessly. The value of a moment has been diluted, but the question remains urgent. What is time for if not to grow, to reflect, to become more whole? We often assume that having more time means we are more free, but time without intention does not liberate us. It numbs us. Without purpose, free time becomes empty time. And empty time has a way of quietly emptying us. The shift from survival to surplus was meant to elevate us, but elevation requires direction. Perhaps the real challenge of modern life is not working too hard, but knowing how to live when we no longer have to fight to stay alive. So what now after freedom? We often celebrate freedom as the highest ideal. Political freedom, economic freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of choice. But rarely do we stop to ask the deeper question that follows freedom for what? Once we are free, what do we do with that freedom? Modern life offers us more choices than ever before. We can choose how we live, what we consume, where we work, who we connect with. But too many choices without clarity of purpose can lead not to liberation, but to paralysis. When everything is possible, nothing feels necessary. When everything is available, nothing feels essential. This is the paradox of modern freedom. We are no longer told what to do, but we often do not know what we truly want. We are not imprisoned by force but by uncertainty. And in this fog of infinite options, many drift into passive living, repeating patterns that feel safe but ultimately hollow. Without direction, freedom becomes weight. The responsibility of shaping one's own life can feel overwhelming. It is easier to conform, to consume, to distract ourselves. We settle into routines not because they fulfill us, but because they require less of us. But deep down, a quiet discomfort lingers, a voice asking if this is really it, a feeling that we are meant for more than surviving days on autopilot. Freedom in its truest form is not just the absence of constraint, it is the presence of meaning. To live freely is not to float without aim, but to choose a path that reflects our deepest values. It requires courage, clarity, and above all, self-knowledge. What do I love? What makes me come alive? What am I willing to struggle for? These are not easy questions, but avoiding them only deepens the emptiness. Freedom is a gift, but it is also a call to become the author of our own life, to shape our time with intention, and to live not just by default, but by design. Passive living, worn out soul. Passive living is deceptive. It often disguises itself as peace, rest, or comfort. Watching shows, scrolling through endless content, numbing ourselves with routine distractions, it feels harmless, even necessary. But underneath the surface, something begins to erode. Slowly, silently, the soul starts to thin. We were not built for constant ease. The human spirit was shaped by resistance, by obstacles that demanded strength, creativity, and adaptation. Without challenge, our inner life begins to flatten. Without effort, we start to forget what we are capable of. The tragedy of passive living is not that it kills us so quickly, but that it does so gently. We stop dreaming. We stop reaching. Days become loops. Conversations lose depth. Time slips through our fingers and we barely notice. Mental fatigue does not always come from stress. Sometimes it comes from stagnation. When we do not engage with life meaningfully, our minds turn against us. Restlessness grows. Self-doubt creeps in. A fog settles in our thoughts. We begin to question not just our choices, but our worth. Passive comfort is addictive. It promises relief but steals vitality. It lulls us into a kind of spiritual sleep where nothing hurts but nothing truly heals. Healing requires energy. It requires facing discomfort, confronting pain, and moving through it. True rest is not avoidance. It is renewal. And renewal only comes when we align with purpose, when we care deeply, when we rise to meet life rather than escape it. If you find yourself empty, even in moments of comfort, you are not broken. You are awake. That discomfort is not your enemy. It is your soul asking to be nourished, asking you to engage, to grow, to feel again. The answer is not to run faster, but to turn inward, to ask what lights you up, what brings your attention fully to the present. The soul does not need more noise. It needs meaning. And passive living, no matter how soothing on the surface, will never give you that. Turn left for stagnation. Turn right for creation. At every moment, we stand at a crossroads. One path leads to ease, repetition, and comfort. The other to effort, risk, and growth. One path asks little from us, but gives little in return. The other demands something deeper, but offers transformation. Stagnation is seductive. It whispers that you deserve rest, that you should avoid struggle, that peace is the absence of effort. But creation knows otherwise. It understands that true peace does not come from doing nothing, but from doing something that matters. To create is not only to paint, write, or build, it is to engage with life intentionally, to shape your time, your thoughts, your emotions into something real. It could be a project, a relationship, a practice of self-reflection. Creation is any act that brings you closer to who you are meant to be. But it is hard. It is easier to repeat yesterday than to invent tomorrow. Easier to consume than to contribute. Easier to distract than to direct. This is why most people choose the path of least resistance. Not because they lack potential, but because they fear discomfort. And yet something in us longs for more. We want to feel the spark of being alive, to look back and know we did not waste the time we were given. We want to leave a mark, however small, that says I was here and I tried. Choosing the path of creation is not about greatness or recognition. It is about becoming more fully ourselves, about reclaiming the parts of us that have gone numb, about choosing vitality over convenience. You do not have to know exactly where the path leads. You only have to take the first step with intention. Every small act of creation is a vote for the life you want to live, a quiet rebellion against stagnation. An loud yes to the possibility of becoming whole is breakthrough for everyone. Not everyone feels the same hunger for transformation. Some people seem content with repetition, routine, and quiet living. They go through life without a strong desire to change, to question, or to pursue something deeper. This can create a false perception that the desire for growth is reserved only for a few, the artists, the seekers, the ambitious. But is that really true? Maybe it is not that others do not care, but that they have forgotten how to care. Maybe the spark was once there, but it was buried under disappointment, failure, or fear. Over time, the longing became quiet. The voice that once asked for more was silence, not by choice, but by life. We should be careful not to mistake quietness for lack of depth. Many people carry silent hopes, hidden dreams, and forgotten questions. Beneath a calm exterior might be a soul waiting to be stirred again. What looks like apathy might really be self-protection. The idea that only a special few are meant to live fully is one of the most damaging myths of our time. Growth is not for the chosen, it is for the willing. And willingness does not come from being extraordinary. It comes from listening to the discomfort, the curiosity, the small voice inside that says this cannot be all there is. Of course not. Everyone is ready at the same time. Some are still healing. Some are still surviving. But readiness does not mean perfection. It means honesty, a moment of clarity, a decision to no longer sleepwalk through life. Breakthrough is not about doing something big. It is about doing something true. A small shift in perspective, a single brave act, an intention to move forward even a little. These moments accumulate. They awaken us. They return us to our potential. The question is not who is allowed to grow. The question is who is willing to respond when the soul knocks. That knock may be soft, but it is always real. True pride, not everyone has it. Many people claim to love themselves, but love built on illusion is fragile. It crumbles when challenged. It hides behind arrogance, masks, insecurity, or relies on external approval to stay intact. True pride, on the other hand, is something else entirely. It is the quiet strength of knowing who you are, what you have earned, and why it matters. True pride is not loud. It does not boast. It does not need validation. It is a grounded sense of self-respect that comes from doing the difficult inner work. It is built by effort, by growth, by facing discomfort instead of avoiding it. You cannot fake true pride. You cannot buy it, inherit it, or borrow it. It comes only from the personal journey of becoming someone you can genuinely admire. Not someone perfect, but someone real. Someone who strives, who reflects, who dares to live with intention. This kind of pride is rare, not because it is impossible, but because it is uncomfortable. It requires us to look at ourselves honestly, to admit where we fall short, to take responsibility for our choices, and then despite all of that to rise and keep going. Most people settle for the illusion of pride because the real thing is demanding. It asks us to grow beyond who we were yesterday, to create something of worth, to live by values, not trends. It is not about being better than others, but being better than who we were before. When we cultivate excellence in even a small area of life, we begin to carry ourselves differently, not with superiority, but with integrity. We walk taller. We speak with clarity. We respect ourselves not for how we are seen, but for who we have chosen to become. True pride is not ego. It is alignment. The moment you realize that your actions reflect your values and that your life is slowly becoming a mirror of your truth, that is where real self-love begins. Ordinary people, extraordinary beings. In every society, there is an unspoken pressure to be normal, to fit in, to follow the crowd, to avoid standing out. From a young age, we are taught to obey, to blend, to choose safety over risk, conformity over individuality. The message is clear. It is better to be accepted than to be authentic. But hidden beneath the surface of many ordinary lives are extraordinary capacities. Most people carry within them the seeds of something rare, a unique way of seeing the world, a deep well of creativity, insight, or compassion. But because these qualities do not always match what society rewards, they remain dormant, unexpressed, and often unnoticed. It is easy to assume that greatness is only for the few, that visionaries, leaders, and creators are born with something the rest of us lack. But this is not truth. It is a convenient lie. The difference is not talent, but willingness, not brilliance, but courage. The courage to listen to one's own voice in a world full of noise. Every person has within them a capacity for depth, but depth requires stillness. It requires reflection. It requires the strength to go against the tide of mediocrity and choose the harder path of self-discovery. Some may live quietly, not because they lack fire, but because they were never given permission to ignite it. Or worse, because they were taught to fear it. We must stop confusing silence with absence. Quiet people are often full of wonder. Still waters run deep. There is no shame in being ordinary. But there is tragedy in never exploring the extraordinary within. The world does not need more copies. It needs more originals. And that begins with one simple decision to stop hiding. You are not here to disappear into the background. You are here to remember who you are, to rediscover the parts of you that were never meant to be silenced, to live not as a shadow of others, but as the truth of yourself. Creativity, the key to awakening the self. Creativity is not reserved for artists. It is a fundamental expression of the human spirit. To create is to say, I exist, I see, I feel, and I want to give form to what lives inside me. It is how we bridge the inner world with the outer one, how we translate emotion, thought, and vision into something tangible. When we stop creating, we begin to disconnect from ourselves. The flow of our inner life becomes blocked. We feel stuck, empty, restless, even if everything on the outside appears fine. We may follow routines, meet expectations, fulfill roles, but inside a part of us goes numb. Creativity is not about talent. It is about permission. The permission to explore, to experiment, to make mistakes, to express something, even if no one understands it, especially if no one understands it. Because sometimes creation is not about being seen by others. It is about being seen by ourselves. The act of creating can be healing. It brings buried emotions to light. It allows us to process pain release, tension, and reconnect with parts of ourselves we forgot. A simple drawing, a few lines in a journal, a melody hummed under your breath. These are not small things. They are acts of remembering. In a world that rewards productivity over presence, creativity can feel indulgent, even pointless. But this is a lie. Creative acts are not distractions from life. They are proof that we are alive. They are how we make sense of the chaos, how we bring beauty into the ordinary. To create is to engage, to stop consuming and start contributing. To step out of the role of spectator and into the role of participant. Life is not something to watch pass by. It is something to shape, to touch, to color with our own experience. If you feel lost, start making something, anything. Let your hands remind your mind that you are still here, still capable of wonder, still full of things the world has yet to see. Trading comfort for meaning, is it worth it? We are often told that a good life is a comfortable one, a stable job, a quiet home, familiar, routines, predictable outcomes. And there is value in comfort. It provides safety, a sense of control, and relief from chaos. But comfort can also become a prison when it is no longer a foundation, but a goal. When we begin to organize our lives around avoiding discomfort, we slowly lose touch with what makes life meaningful. Growth requires discomfort. Purpose asks for effort. Joy often follows struggle. Meaning is not something we stumble into. It is something we cultivate. And that cultivation is rarely comfortable. Comfort seduces us with promises of ease. But ease is not the same as fulfillment. There is a difference between feeling good and being whole. Many people feel fine on the surface, but deep down they know something is missing. A dull ache, a quiet question, a sense that their days are passing without depth. To choose meaning over comfort is not to reject rest, but to recognize that not all ease is healing. Some kinds of comfort keep us stuck. Some distractions numb rather than restore. Some routines slowly erase our sense of wonder. Living meaningfully means choosing what matters more than what is easy. It means facing uncertainty, taking risks, and sometimes walking alone. But in doing so, we touch something real. We connect with our values. We come alive in a way that comfort never quite offers. This is not a call to abandon softness. Rest is sacred. Quiet is necessary, but comfort as the ultimate goal will always fall short. It may keep us safe, but it rarely makes us feel alive. The question is not whether comfort is bad. It is whether it is enough. For some, it might be. But if you feel a quiet hunger for more, if your soul is restless even when your body is at ease, then maybe it is time to ask what you are really trading for your comfort and whether it is worth the cost. Healing starts from within. Healing does not begin with fixing the world. It begins with facing ourselves, not with judgment or harshness, but with gentleness and honesty. For many of us, the wounds we carry are not visible. They live in the quiet moments, in the thoughts we avoid, in the emotions we numb, in the stories we never tell. We live in a culture that encourages distraction over depth. When we feel discomfort, we are told to escape it. Watch something, buy something, keep moving. But true healing does not come from escape. It comes from presence, from learning to sit with what is difficult and listening to what it wants to teach us. There is a part of us that already knows how to heal. It speaks in whispers, not shouts. It shows up in the urge to write something down, to cry without reason, to walk alone in silence. These are not signs of weakness. They are invitations, the soul asking for attention. Healing is not linear. It is not a straight path or a final destination. Some days we will feel strong, and some days we will feel broken. But every time we choose to pause instead of push, to feel instead of flee, we create space for something new to emerge. Often what we need most is not advice, but permission. Permission to slow down, to not be okay, to let the sadness come without needing to fix it right away. This is where healing begins, not in control, but in surrender. You are not behind. You are not broken beyond repair. You are human, and healing is part of what it means to be alive. Not a project to complete, but a relationship to nurture. With yourself, with your pain, with your hope. So breathe. Let the noise settle. Sit with yourself, not to solve anything, but to remember that underneath it all, you are still whole. Healing starts not when the world quiets down, but when you finally choose to listen. Awakening. The question that turns life around. Sometimes transformation begins not with an answer, but with a question. A single question that lingers, echoes, and refuses to be ignored. It might come in a moment of silence, or during a routine day when something inside you whispers, is this the life I want to keep living? Awakening is not always dramatic. It does not need a crisis or a grand revelation. Often it begins quietly with a flicker of discomfort, a sense that something is missing, a realization that what once satisfied you no longer does. This is not a sign of failure. It is the soul stirring. There comes a time when comfort begins to feel hollow and success loses its flavor. When the things you chased begin to feel like cages, not rewards. In these moments, the real work begins, the work of remembering. Remembering who you were before you were told who to be. To awaken is not to become someone new. It is to return to what is most true in you, to strip away the noise, the roles, the expectations, and listen to the quiet voice within. That voice is often small, but it is honest. It asks difficult questions, not to torment you, but to guide you back. What do you long for when no one is watching? What would you do if you were not afraid? What part of you have you silenced to be accepted? These are not easy questions, but they are the doorway to truth. Awakening does not promise comfort. It promises clarity. It asks you to trade the familiar for the real, to walk into the unknown, not because it is safe, but because it is alive. The question is not whether you are ready. The question is whether you are willing to listen, willing to follow, willing to begin again. Every awakening starts with one honest moment, one breath of truth, one choice to finally come home to yourself. Sometimes life doesn't break you. It just quietly wears you down. Not with tragedy, but with silence. With routines that ask for your time, but never your soul. But your soul remembers. It remembers color movement, risk, wonder. This is your chance to return to that remembering. Not with urgency, but with tenderness. Not to escape life, but to finally step into it. Begin gently. Begin truthfully. Begin now.